G'day guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today I got a bit of a different one. It'll be broken down into different parts. It'll basically be why I believe the Taranto and Hopper trade from last season for GWS, when they traded off Taranto and Hopper to the Tigers, has been really beneficial to them for this season, and in fact probably improved them, can you believe. Now, at the start of the trade period last year, Taranto and Hopper were rumoured to go to Richmond, and ended up making a trade for them successfully, the Giants, and everyone was thinking that the Giants would be a lot worse side, especially with the other departures of Tanner Bruin and Bobby Hill to the Cats and Pies, respectively. Most people were believing that the GWS Giants were going to have a long and lengthy rebuild ahead of them, but they haven't at all. In fact, they've gotten to the final 4 teams of 2023. They're into a prelim final after I predicted them to win the wooden spoon this year. So it makes me look like a bit of a goose. It makes everyone look pretty silly. And this is a video basically explaining why GWS have been so good this year. Now, obviously, there is numerous reasons why they have been so good this year, not just the Taranto and Hopper trade, but it's something that can definitely help them in future years. Obviously, they didn't get a lot for them, seeming the value of Taranto and Hopper, but the fact is they had Hopper was injured for quite most of the year. Taranto was fantastic, Richmond's best player, and arguably deserved to be All-Australian, didn't even get in the squad of 40 or whatever it was. So, yeah, those two were obviously fantastic gets for Richmond, but didn't really make them a better side it did on paper, but not necessarily, on the table, because Richmond didn't even make the 8. They were predicted to do very well, and most people predicted that Taranto and Hopper would change them, and Taranto certainly did. Hopper was pretty good, but could have been better, I guess. I think Richmond were probably expecting him to be a little bit better, and he could be once, Cotchin's retired now. If Dusty and Prestia get traded, which is highly unlikely, he would have to be a pretty important factor on their rebuild now, Richmond. But anyways, so yeah, they got the Taranto trade. They managed to get pick 12 and 19 for the Tim Taranto trade, which they selected last year in the draft. They ended up selecting, they ended off getting moved down a little bit to pick 16, which was Harry Rouston, who they matched their bid against Sydney to get him, and he's been alright this year. I think he's played a few games this season, and is a good future option for their midfield, which is already absolutely stacked, and I'll get to a little bit later on in the video. But yeah, Harry Rosen is definitely a nice depth player. I think he played quite early on in the season, made his debut, and has been around the best 26 at times this year, but hasn't really played much in the second half of the year. He has played 7 games this season for the Giants. The other one that they managed to select, who, I guess, ended up sliding down the order as well to pick 22, and they had other trades with other players, of course. Turned out to be Max Gruzwelski, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who hasn't played a game yet, but he is, again, another future options for their side. And they've got so much other great young depth as well, GWS, that haven't played any games and no one's really heard of. Now, for the Jacob Hopper trade, they traded Richmond, got pick, I think it was pick 53 and 63, or something like that, for the Jacob Hopper trade, and the Giants managed to receive pick 31, which ended up being pick 34 and Toby McMullen, who's played 3 games all quite later on in this season, quite recently, and has been alright. He's showed some signs, so there could be something there in the future for him. It's pretty hard to break into that forward line at the moment, though, the Giants. But again, he is hanging around the 26 and has for a while. But hasn't quite been able to lock his spot on the side. It'll be interesting to see how he goes for a future option for the Giants. But yeah, pretty much getting Hopper for free there. They also got a future first round pick, which means they get pick 6 this year in the draft. Well, as it currently is, it's pick 6, which is absolutely humongous, seeming they've gone on this late stretch that they now currently hold pick 15 on their ladder position currently. It could obviously be lower if they beat Collingwood and even win the grand final. But at the moment, they do get pick 6 tied to the trade last year of Hopper from Richmond. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see who they select this year, and they could get someone even worthy of being their best 22. So, it's definitely set them up for a nice little 2023 draft, those trades. And the other big thing, Taranto and Hopper, big-bodied midfielders. Hopper wasn't really playing anywhere too special, bit on the wing, bit of midfield up forward. He was quite injured last season. I don't think he played many games at all, very little. And Taranto was injured at the start of last season as well. Again, he was playing up forward a bit and didn't really enjoy it. He wanted to be a big-bodied mid, but they just had too much midfielders. But getting those two out have really, really been beneficial to the Giants' side. Stephen Coniglio was best on in the semi-final. He's been fantastic for them in the midfield. You got Callum Ward, who's added more midfield time this year, and he's played pretty well. Seeming he hasn't really done much since his most recent ACL in 2019. Lockie Whitfield and Lockie Ash are two great running defenders. They run through the midfield now and are doing very, very well and have had superb seasons, very, very underrated seasons at the Giants. Then you've obviously got your other big-bodied mids, Tom Green, for instance, who was a little bit unlucky not to get an All-Australian feature. We ranked first for disposals this season, so on average, so that's a pretty big stat to have. Isaac Cummings spent some time on the wing and looked dangerous in front of goal. Then you've obviously got future young options in Finn Callaghan and Harry Roston, like I've spoke of earlier. You got Xavier O'Halloran, who's like a good forward, half pressure type midfielder. Harry Perryman goes in there. So they've just got such a stacked midfield, the Giants now, and it's definitely dangerous. Also forgot to mention Josh Kelly, who is at the moment, he's probably player of the final series for GWS. Not sure if he's player of the final series overall. There was probably a couple ahead of him from Carlton and Walsh and Akers, but he is certainly up there and has had another superb season. So, yeah, they've got a stacked midfield, not to mention Darcy Jones, who not too many people would have, heard of. He's a fantastic player who unfortunately did his ACL in this preseason and hasn't played a game yet, but proves to be a good future option for the Giants. And, yeah, it could be a good one. It just depends on his ACL, really. It's taken so long for Callum Ward to finally get back to his best, and looks like he's playing some pretty good footy at the moment. You've obviously got other players that can roll into the midfield, which normally don't have to. Bedford's another one. Brent Daniels, fantastic pressure forwards. You've obviously got Toby Green, your captain, who rolls into the midfield as well. So they've just got such a stacked list. And then you've got your forward line, who has, been very interesting, especially their key forwards, getting back after the losses of Finlayson and Cameron, and Himmelberg going down to defence. It obviously is going to take some time to develop your forwards. Everyone expecting Aaron Cadman to come in and do so well. Hasn't really been able to break into the squad and done so well at the top, but it's been the two unlikely key forwards that have been doing the job, especially in the final series, in Jake Riccardi and Jesse Hogan. Riccardi had the big bag against the Saints in the first final. Hogan had his big bag in the semi-final. Both have been crucial players in this second half of the season. Hogan's kicked over 50 goals this year, which is absolutely incredible. Has gone under the radar for the whole of the second half of the season. And same with Riccardi as well, who got a 3-year deal in August off the back of his really, really good form. And then you've got your pressure forwards, Toby Bedford and Brent Daniels, the two best pressure forwards in the game, both elite. They both kick goals. They can roll into the midfield. Just fantastic players. And very, very underrated at the Giants. Then you've got Toby as well, who can roll in the midfield. He's your captain, all-Australian captain as well. He can do anything, Toby. And he's won them good 5 or 6 games, especially earlier in the year when everything wasn't quite going so well for them, except for Toby. And he certainly was carrying them at the start of the season. And then you've obviously got underrated mid-sized tall forward Callum Brown, or Callum Brown now, I guess you can say. He's a pretty classy player that was playing in the defence for the first half of the season, made his switch to the forward line right when GWS started to get on their winning streak against North Melbourne. And, well, he's been their good luck charm really up forward. Ever since he's been the move to forward, GWS have only lost 2 games. He has had quiet games, obviously, but when he is on, he is on. And he's become one of my favourite players in the game. And you've obviously got retiree forward Daniel Lloyd, who can also apply great pressure and has been pretty superb in the final series as well. Basically, their whole list has really. Then you've got your strong elite defence, which is one of the best in the comp. In the second half of the season, it's really, really, really been good. So underrated, their defence. Absolutely superb. Start with the tall defenders. You got Jack Buckley and Sam Taylor. At the moment, they're absolutely best friends and they're absolutely loving their work. They're like the Stephen May, Jake Lever 2021 combo at the moment, and have been playing some really good footy in the final series. Haven't really been needed to do as much work, though, in this final series compared to the second half of the season, because they have been so elite in this final series so far, the Giants. It'll be interesting to see what they do this week against Collingwood in the prelim. Taylor has been playing a bit injured as well with his hammy, of course. Then you've obviously got your star defenders in Lockie Whitfield and Lockie Ash, who I mentioned before. Fantastic running defenders. Another decent lockdown defender is Connor Iden. No one really heard of him, been pretty decent, but he has really come to life in the last month or so. He's been really, really impressive. And then you've got Harry Himmelberg, who made the switch to defence, has been superb. Obviously, there are a few players that I haven't mentioned who have also been going under the radar to mine, but are playing some pretty important roles. One of them is Lockie Keith, that other key forward option and backup ruck option. He's actually a really good ruckman. Obviously a former Pie. I don't really remember him that much, and he's a very, very forgettable player. Doesn't really kick goals as a forward, but he just really, really works in their system for some reason. And I guess he's kind of taken over as a bit of a ruckman, as their second ruckman, that's for sure. It allows Riccardi and Hogan to dominate the forward line, and when he goes down there, he can help. He can go to defence if they're under siege, and he might not necessarily be good, but it's better than nothing. And then you've got a spare up forward in defence in the ruck. He's a really, really handy player, even though he does pretty much nothing in the game. But it also relies on his system. It's very, very interesting and has definitely gone under the radar, that's for sure. Xavier O'Halloran is another one who's been a really good pressure forward. Can go into the midfield. Just been really, really superb. Unfortunately, I think he broke his hand right when GWS were going on their winning streak. He had a really good month or so in the middle, right when GWS were looking ominous. I think it was his breakout game was against Sydney this year, and unfortunately got injured. I think it was against Richmond or Hawthorn, something like that. One of those teams at Giant Stadium, and unfortunately has missed and managed to break in to the team last week. Was a late in for St Kilda to come in and play, and then I think he played a sub on the weekend against Port. So, he's been another one. Josh Fay's another one. He can play anywhere, which is the amazing ability of him. He's got a really, really good kick on him as well. He's going to be a really good player for their future. He can play wing, bit of midfield, although he isn't quite a big-bodied midfielder. He can run through there, similar to a Lockie Ash Whitfield type. He can play off half-back, just like Lockie Ash and Whitfield. He can even go forward, and he's got such an accurate kick on him that he rarely misses. Hasn't played too many games yet and is still very, very raw. But there is a lot of hidden potential in him, that's for sure. So they've got a fantastic list. Now, obviously, there is one player that I'm missing that has completely changed their club, and that's Kieran Briggs, the ruckman. One of my favourite players now. It should be one of your favourite players if he's not, because especially if you're a Giants supporter, because he has changed the club. He was the guy that came in round 10 against St Kilda, didn't get the job done but challenged. Ever since round 10, the Giants have had one of the best records in the comp. And he is rated second best ruckman this year. He rarely loses his ruck taps. He's got favourite moves. He can spin around, slap it forward. He's such a big-bodied player as well. He can go forward and even down back as well if he really needs to. And has been fantastic. He averages one of the most for disposals. His clearance work is absolutely phenomenal. Averages 7 a game, which is outstanding for a ruckman. Hit-outs to advantage as well is ridiculous. Just such a superb player. And he's definitely going to be key to their future. He's been, not only has he been linked and, rated similar to Big Mummy, Sean Mumford, who retired a few years ago from the Giants, but he even gets coached by him as well, and he's such a fantastic player, and unfortunately did injure his shoulder against Port Adelaide, and is in doubt against Collingwood, which is a huge blow for him. And as much as I would like that, as I am a Collingwood supporter, it's such a sad thing because GWS have been one of my favourite teams to watch this year just because they've been... Well, I guess I've linked them so similarly to Collingwood. They've got the two forward half pressures, forwards in Bedford and Daniels, who are so underrated. They've got elite running half-back defenders, just like Nick Dacos and Noble were, and Ash and Whitfield, who do the same thing, roll through the midfield, get it started. They've got great key defenders. They've got a fantastic forward line, better than ours in my opinion, which makes them even more dangerous. Toby Green's just so superb. They've done exactly what we've done last year. And there is a big reason that I'm going to get to in a minute. They've got a fantastic captain. They've got a fantastic list. Well, the one thing they don't have is fans, but they have the ability to win anywhere. And if you're a Giants supporter, get behind your team. They've just got such a fantastic team. And get behind them. And I think the whole reason that this has happened is because of Adam Kingsley. Adam Kingsley is the reason why GWS have become GWS. Not only because they're playing with no fear, they've got great belief, they trust their game plan, they're playing with energy, especially the younger players, which is the most exciting thing. Their older players have become more confident. Cornelio looks better. Even Green. I think the captaincy move has really, really suited him and even helped his game. Perryman becoming a leader. He's stepped up a lot more. It's just such a fantastic leadership moves by Adam Kingsley. The game plan, of course, the Orange Tsunami, absolutely superb. so good to watch. It's literally just like Collingwood, except they've got a name for their game plan. Our game plan is more chaos, running halfback change, defensive moves. Got to win your contested footy to win. More type Collingwood game style. The GWS one is similar but more effective, and is probably the reason why I can see them winning. Not the flag, maybe not this year, because it's so early. Like, they've made these changes halfway through the season, and they've gotten to a prelim final, which is absolutely ridiculous. But if they did this at the start of the year, they would easily have won the flag, in my opinion. And next year, you watch out for them. Watch out for them in, I reckon, 5 years as well. For the next 5 years, GWS could be the best team in the competition. And it's all because of these moves. And Adam Kingsley has been the main reason. And of course, Taranto and Hopper going to Richmond and doing badly. Adam Kingsley's just going to have a laugh at that. And they've just got such great belief. And the momentum they've gotten in the last 4 outings they've had. The big win against Essendon helped them to beat Carlton, which helped them because they beat Carlton. They went, oh my God, we can actually do this. And cruised past the Saints and won that halfway through the second quarter. And again, they had a great 11-minute burst, which saw them beat Port Adelaide the other day on the weekend. So this is a phenomenal side that knows what they're doing, and believe me, I wouldn't be surprised if they beat us and win in the grand final, because they can win anywhere. They can beat a Brisbane at the Melbourne, easy, without a fan base, easy. They could beat Carlton probably, and they could probably beat us. So, and this is in maybe a few months that have made these changes, and they're already having this success, and within a month they've already done greatness in September. They're halfway there. The thing is that really helps them is that they've already played 2 games, so they've already got a big taste of experience of finals games, their pressure. They've smashed St Kilda and Port Adelaide in clearances, the midfield, everything. And their defence is elite, and their forward line is elite. They've scored over 100, or almost over 100 in both games. They've scored over 90 in both games, and they've scored over 90 in their last 4 games. So look out for the Giants. They are a real side this year, and probably for the next few years. And I hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see you guys very, very soon for my tipping video on my predictions for the prelims. And, of course, some more videos coming up on the channel.